Hey everyone, how's it going? Azren here, owner of the Calgary Language French lesson. If this is your very first time coming across any of my French lesson podcasts or French lesson videos like this, right now I am in the middle of a series to help you go from your current level, upper beginner, maybe low intermediate, all the way up to upper intermediate. Upper intermediate for so many language learners is the final goal that they had in mind. That's what they're really excited about. That's what they really want to reach. And understandably so. The B2 level or upper intermediate level, this is a very advanced, very proficient level in a language. You can understand most of what people say. You can pretty much articulate almost anything you'd ever want to say. Your writing is probably pretty darn good. Your reading is probably pretty darn good. Your pronunciation's like you are very, very good at the language when you have a B2 level. And so my goal with the series is to guide you from an A2 level, so that's the upper beginner level, all the way up to that B2 level that so many people aspire to reach. So far, we are relatively early in this video lesson series, and we've been focusing on high frequency vocabulary. High frequency vocabulary is really important when learning a language because really language is made up of words. It is made up of words, and scientifically, objectively, like using our analytical brains, it is a more often than other words. When you have an A2 level, so that upper beginner level, and frankly, even a B1 level, that's the low intermediate level, when you're at those two levels, one of the big gaps that we have are is that there are very frequently used words that you don't know. Frequently used words that you just don't know quite all that well yet. Or you've heard them, but you're not that familiar with them. So far we've looked at, let me share my screen. So far, we've done some practice with aucun, rendre, ainsi, lieu, droit, donc, alors, soit, car. We also did puisque. It's not on my screen, but we've done puisque, tant, autant, vers, poser, grâce à cause de, and yes, those are the high frequency words that we've looked at. And all these high frequency words, by the way, these are not randomly sequenced. All these words here, they're not randomly sequenced. I actually got a book. I have a book at home where the author has gone through and listed in order of frequency of use what words in French are used the most frequently, which ones are used the least frequently. So what I did is I read the entire book, read the whole thing, and I cherry picked based on the knowledge I have, my expertise, experience. I cherry picked the words in order of stuff that is frequent, but you probably don't know at your given level. So today we're going to keep learning some more high frequency words. And today, the two words we're going to start with are words that, in a way, you already know. In a way, you already know them. Or rather, you know the simplified version of them, but you don't know the polished version of them. So the first word that you already know, almost guaranteed, is the word aussi. Aussi means also, right? Like moi aussi, me too, me also. Or like, I don't know, moi aussi j'aime les pommes. I also like apples, for example. Or like, I don't know, j'aime le football et aussi, pardon, j'aime le football et j'aime aussi le tennis. I like soccer and I also like tennis. Like these are very, very easy. It's a very, very easy word. A leveled up version of the word aussi is également. Également is pretty much a synonym for aussi. They're essentially synonyms. The difference is that également is just a little bit more polished. It's a little bit more, It's a bit more polite, a little bit more formal, a little bit more professional, maybe. Um, when we're trying to make the jump from A2 and we're trying to really improve and and reach the B2 level, one of the things that we have to learn over time is more polished versions of words that you already know. So aussi, you already know. Également, également is a more polished version of the word. Let me show you how it's spelled and show you a couple example sentences. I'll share my screen here. Here we go. So a couple examples, we have j'aime le football et j'aime aussi le tennis, right? J'aime le football et j'aime également le tennis. That could work, for example, right? Je vais prendre un café et je prends aussi un croissant. So I'm going to take a coffee and I'll also take a croissant. Or with également, je vais prendre un café et je prends également un croissant. So again, see how you can easily swap these two out. They're pretty much synonyms. Now, the next word we're going to look at here that also is one of these switcheroo words, a word we can kind of swap out, is the word lorsque. So the simplified version of lorsque is quand. So for example, like, I don't know, quand tu arrives chez moi, on va manger quelque chose. Quand tu arrives chez moi, on va manger quelque chose. When you arrive at my house, we are going to eat something. Okay? Lorsque is the same thing, but it's just, again, a little bit more polished, a little more, not even that much more formal, but a little bit more formal. So quand is just like a regular day-to-day kind of word. Lorsque, lorsque is just more, again, polite or something like that. There is one key difference with lorsque that's worth knowing is quand. When we use quand in French, we have two different possible ways to use it. We could use it in statements and we can use it in questions. So I could say, for example, quand tu arrives chez moi, on va manger quelque chose. When you arrive at my house, we're going to eat something. That is a statement. That's not a question. But if I ask you in French, you know, quand est-ce que, I don't know, quand est-ce que tu vas voyager? When are you going to travel? That's a question. That's not a statement. With lorsque, we only use it with statements. We don't use it with questions. We can look at a couple examples here. I'll share my screen. Let's look at a few examples. So, quand je me réveille, je prends un café. When I wake up, I take a coffee. I have a coffee. With lorsque je me réveille, je prends un café. Kind of the same thing, pretty much. Quand, nous restons à la maison quand il pleut. We stay at the house when it rains. Nous restons à la maison lorsqu'il pleut. Right? So again, same thing, lorsqu'il pleut. So, yeah, that's the same meaning pretty much. Okay. And yeah, so those are the first two words that we're going to look at here. So those are the first two. The next ones, they're not really switcheroo words. They're not words that we're going to swap out. They're not more fancy words for words you already know. They're just, I don't know, words you may or may not know at this point. We're going to look at surtout. Surtout is especially. What I like about surtout is the formation of that word. So surtout, for example, let me stop my screen share. In surtout, we have sur, which is like above or on. Tout is everything or all. So it's like saying above all else. Sur tout. Easy peasy, right? So surtout is like especially. So I could say like, I don't know, j'aime surtout Harry Potter. J'aime lire et j'aime surtout lire Harry Potter. So I like to read, but I especially like to read Harry Potter. Or what do I have here? Il faut faire attention surtout la nuit. You have to be careful, especially at night, right? Elle adore voyager, hein, surtout en Italie. She loves to travel, especially in Italy, right? Next one to look at is la loi. Let me share my screen so you can see it. Here's surtout, by the way, one more time at the top. Here's our surtout right there, number 15. Number 17 is la loi. La loi is the law. So tout le monde doit respecter la loi du pays. Everyone must respect the law of the country. Il est contre la loi de conduire sans permis. It is against the law to drive without a license. Number 18 is la guerre. La guerre is a war. Even guerre. Listen to that word, guerre. Guerre. It almost sounds like a very aggressive word, doesn't it? Guerre. Even to me, it sounds almost aggressive. War, guerre, you know? Let me share my screen here. So personne, there we go. Personne ne veut une nouvelle guerre, for example. Nobody wants a new war would be a nice simple example of that. Okay, let's do some practice here with these words. So I'm going to pop over here. I'm going to show you some pictures and you tell me like what we're looking at, okay? Let's start with something easy. Let's start with a war. So if we're looking at a war, for example, how do we say war in French? Une Guerre, right? Une guerre. C'est une guerre. Look at all these aggressive kind of dystopian style pictures. Une guerre. Let's get a picture of let's get some apples here. Oops. Okay, here's some apples. Perfect. What if like apples were your favorite fruit and you want to say like, "Oh my god, I love fruits, but like I especially like apples." J'aime surtout les pommes. Ouais, surtout j'aime surtout les pommes. Surtout j'aime les pommes, hein. Ouais, surtout hein, ouais, j'aime les pommes. Or j'aime surtout les pommes. A couple different ways you can say that. Let's look at, for example, let's get a picture of a watch maybe. Let's just search time. So when we ask when in French, or when we say the word when, we usually would say quand. Quand is kind of a regular date. Why is this not loading? Come on. Come on, what internet? You can do it. I believe in you. We have some students who are desperately wanting to reach a B2 level. They want B2. They're relying on you to generate pictures. Come on. Come on, internet. You can do it. Bam. Thank you. You're coming through for the students. They're so happy. So we know that for time, when we have when, for example, I love this kind of floaty clock one. Um, we know that generally our default word is quand, right? Quand is a word at your level you probably already know. Quand, easy peasy. What is the more leveled up version of quand? Lorsque, right? Lorsque. What about the more leveled? Let's kind of see if there's a fun one here. Let's just do maybe. Okay, here's this one. Time is money. That's obviously you're balancing time and money in that picture, right? Let's say you're telling someone you're kind of trying to find the right balance in working to like work and your personal life. You're trying to find that balance, and you're explaining this to someone else, right? And they're like, "Oh my god, yeah." How do we make a sentence like that? Actually, I don't like the tree I'm barking up. Let's just say, for example, keep it really easy. You want to say like a nice fancy word to swap out for aussi. What is that word? It is également, right? So, for example, we had today, j'aime le football. J'aime, where to go here? J'aime le football et j'aime également le tennis, right? Et j'aime également le tennis. I also like tennis. I like it just as much. Yeah, one way to remember that, by the way, is également. Maybe it'll make you think of equally. I equally like tennis, something like that. So, okay, let's wrap today's lesson up there. We're going to keep working on some more vocabulary. By the way, pretty soon I can feel it in my gut, in my chest. I can feel it. I think we're going to start doing a little bit more of authentic practice. We're going to start to use some of these words that we have. We're getting through enough now where it's like, we should maybe start practicing these in a more authentic way. So soon, I can feel it in my chest. We're going to start doing some authentic practice with a lot of the words we're learning. So we're going to start to maybe have some texts that we read together or some little stories or something with a lot of these kinds of words. You can get used to seeing them and hearing them. So it's going to be very exciting. Okay, au revoir. See you next time. Bye.